put together something really great that I've never seen before. But it's on the Wabash in Iowa, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's James did it.
Speech.
Speech.
Oh, you're going to get one.
I helped with this project with the main part of my help is I'm going to stand over in the corner and tell him whatever he's done wrong, and as he's doing it, and then Steve is going to probably correct me. So we're going to have a really good time.
Oh yeah.
I was born and raised here in Ottumwa, over on the south side.
Of course, now this isn't just Ottumwa stuff, but we ought to do something.
We're going to have to take that Iowa map down too.
We're going to try this. See what happens. That's not too bad.
That's pretty good.
Oh, Dell's from Ottumwa.
They wish.
You didn't know it, but yes.
I thought that was part of the presentation.
No, it's not.
And now a message from our father.
Well, my display went away, so I had to reboot. Well, anyway, let's get this show on the road. Wasn't that a great dinner we had, folks?
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yes.
I think my spare tire just got retread after eating that dinner. Anyway, I'll practice giving this program all week, so if you can manage to look more like a bathroom mirror, I would appreciate it.
I'm not very reflective.
You
want us to fog up?
You'll find that I'm a very forthright speaker, which is to say about every fourth sentence I utter is right. This is why I have this gentleman over here to chime in and correct me when I have something wrong in here. But let's get this show on the road. We're talking about the Great Wabash System in Iowa. I had originally wanted to do only the 16th district, but I knew we had people coming over from Council Bluffs area, so I thought, and of course Rob, his interest is the Keokuk and western Keokuk area, so why not just do it all? The Wabash in Iowa, that's the genesis behind this presentation tonight. Well, when we talk about the Wabash in Iowa, we first have to talk about the North Missouri Railroad. Most everybody's heard about the North Missouri. It was incorporated in 1851 to build from St. Charles, Missouri, not St. Louis, St. Charles, north towards the Iowa border. Now, the chief engineer for that railroad was a guy named Jonathan B. Moulton. Okay? And there he is right there. North Missouri Railroad got a monetary grant, for lack of a better phrase, from the Missouri legislature, but part of their requirement was that the North Missouri had to bisect the natural divide between waters running to the Mississippi on one side and down to the Missouri on the other. And this is what this looks like. North Missouri comes out of St. Charles up to Moberly, up to Macon. You can see the rivers on either side. Those are like Fabius and Salt that flow into the Mississippi. Down, we head down here. Over here we have the Sheraton and the Grand, I think, is one of them. Nottoway, you name it. They all flow into the Missouri. But this was a natural point to bring this railroad up from St. Louis because there are very, very few bridges on that line. And as the railroad, the Norfolk Southern, found out in 1993, this is a very valuable line to have because during the floods of that year, this was one of the only rail lines open in the Midwest. Now they did have to replace, repair washouts and things like that, but this was all above water in '93. Not that could not be said for most of the railroads around here. Well, the line expansion of the North Missouri is delayed, of course, by the Civil War. We've all heard the stories about Bloody Bill Anderson and Confederate raiders and stuff that basically shut the railroad down, burned a lot of their depots and set their cars off the track, what have you. So the construction was halted at Macon before the war. But once the war was finished, the line came north again from Macon and reached Kirksville, my hometown, in 1868. Don't believe Trains Magazine when they did their article on the Wabash years ago. They said it was 1858, and that hurt my dad no end because simple research would have told me it was 1868. So they continued north to the Missouri-Iowa border at a little town called Coatesville in December of that year. Well, some people in Iowa held a meeting in Cedar Rapids in September of 1865 to form what they call the St. Louis and Cedar Rapids Railroad. Purposes of that railroad was to connect with other railroads in the two communities, places like Ottumwa, Sigourney, on up to Cedar Rapids, to tap the agricultural resources, not to mention the mineral resources of these areas. What mineral resources might we be talking about?
Coal.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Little progress was made on the Cedar Rapids line until December of 1868, when the North Missouri Railroad became involved in that little operation. They lent their name to it. They leased them. That allowed the St. Louis and Cedar Rapids to get capitalize themselves, get funding to build the line. And this is a map of what that railroad would have looked like. On up here to Moulton, up to Ottumwa, and then on up through, this is Keokuk County, that's Sigourney, on up through to Cedar Rapids. Notice I say down here proposed route, because that never got built. Well, a guy named Ira Tucker lived near what's now comprised of Moulton, Iowa. He was the first white man to own land around present-day Moulton after the Indians left. Named his real estate holdings Elizabethtown after his wife. But this guy wanted to move to California, and he did end up eventually moving out there. So he sold his land holdings to J.B. Moulton and some guy named Carruthers, first name unknown, Carruthers, of Bloomfield. So J.B. Moulton, being an engineer, he plats this town. Carruthers then began deeding a number of locations within that to St. Louis and Cedar Rapids. So they named it after Jonathan Moulton. That's how Moulton, Iowa came into being. That was established in 1869. The railroad arrived in December of 1869. So now the railroad that we know now as the Wabash was finally established in Iowa. And on July 26, 1870, elaborate banquet held in Ottumwa at Taylor and Blake's Hall. I don't even know where that's even still here. To celebrate the railroad's arrival here in Ottumwa. A special train was run from Ottumwa to St. Louis over the new line. This was under the North Missouri Railroad banner. But the North Missouri soon went under the hammer, so to speak, was reorganized, as we know, the St. Louis, Kansas City, and Northern. Later under Jay Gould's financial handiwork, and that's a polite way of referring to it, this railroad became combined with his other holdings east of the Mississippi under Wabash, St. Louis, and Pacific. I've got a slide in here about Jay Gould. This entire books have been written about this man. I don't know if y'all know the history of this guy. We went, when Jim Holmes and I wrote the Wabash-Pittsburgh Terminal, just unearthed a lot of information about how people really thought about this guy back in his day. Even Joseph Pulitzer said he was one of the most sinister figures to have flitted bat-like across the vision of the American people. There's a famous line from, anybody heard of the European financier Rothschild? Just rich beyond all measure. He was told of a visit that Gould was going to make to Europe, so he sends this historic cable. Tell Gould Europe not for sale. Yeah. This guy spent money like it was going out of style. He was a very shrewd investor. But enough about it. The St. Louis and Cedar Rapids eventually formed, the emphasis switched from extending the line to Cedar Rapids, although some roadbed was eventually graded up towards Sigourney. I was going to ask the Iowa people here, did that roadbed eventually become the Milwaukee later?
Yes.
Okay, good. Answers that. Des Moines became the new goal of the Wabash management once the Cedar Rapids idea fell through. And then comes the Wabash Syndicate. This was ostensibly a homegrown outfit with people around Des Moines, some famous names that you might recall, but behind it was Google, okay? They formed the Des Moines and St. Louis Railroad. They built south from Des Moines to Albion, okay? These officers, Fort Dodge, Grenville Dodge, General Dodge, John Runnels, anybody ever heard of Runnels? Yeah, Runnels. James Clarkson and Jefferson Polk County. One of these guys, I think, built the Southern Iowa Railway. I think it was Dodge.
Yeah. Dodge was instrumental in the Union Pacific.
Yes.
Yeah, he found Sherman.
Yeah. But yeah, St. Louis to Des Moines, how the heck does that happen? On November 6, 1882, the first passenger train steamed into from St. Louis steamed into Des Moines, but how'd they do it? Since Albion didn't connect with it yet. Albion didn't connect with Moulton yet. So you head south from Albion on a little railroad called the Centerville, Moravia, and Albia Railroad, owned by General Francis Drake of the Iowa Syndicate. At Centerville, we head east on another railroad, Rob Adams, in Missouri, Iowa, and Nebraska. This railroad ran south from Keokuk to Alexandria, Missouri, on the Mississippi, and headed west throughout the northeast part of Missouri to a little town called Glenwood Junction. Actually, it's not even a town. A little junction point at Glenwood Junction. So at Glenwood Junction, the Missouri, Iowa, and Nebraska Railroad crossed the North Missouri, continued west, entering Iowa, reaching Centerville in 1872. Thus, that's a convoluted route. You can follow this. You come south out of Des Moines to Albia, come south on the Centerville, Moravia, and Albia Railroad, which eventually became the Southern Iowa electrified line. You saw the remnants of the roadbed today. Then you get on the Missouri, Iowa, and Nebraska, all the way down to Glenwood Junction, where it intersected with the Wabash, and then you go to St. Louis. Isn't that just a clumsy operation? Huh? But in 1884, the Gould lines collapsed. This went on a while until his house of cards collapsed. Wabash went into receivership. The MI and N were reorganized. It became the Keokuk and Western after that. So what do they do then? How do they get to Des Moines after all that house of cards collapsed? Well, you go to Ottumwa, where you get on the Rock Island. Then you head westbound to Harvey. Then it's on to Des Moines on Wabash rails. And the Centerville, Moravia, and Albia was let go by the Wabash, and eventually electrified and served Centerville for years afterward, from Albia through Moravia down to Centerville as Southern Iowa. So they closed the gap with the Moulton, Albia, and Des Moines Railroad. That was incorporated in 1899 to build from Moulton to Albia, 28 miles. Why didn't they just do this before? Who knows? Completed that same year, 28 miles in 1 year. Promptly, like probably minutes after completion, it was sold to the Wabash, thus giving true Des Moines-St. Louis service all the way south from Des Moines to Albia, through Moravia, and down to Moulton. And of course, you have the original branch up to Ottumwa, extending out from Moulton. So that's the 16th, essentially, in a nutshell. What about the Omaha line? The St. Louis Council Bluffs in Omaha, what a grand name that was, had completed a rail line from Brunswick, Missouri to Pattonsburg. So that eventually ended up in St. Louis, Kansas City, northern hands. And that was the end of the line for a few years. They interchanged there with the little railroad, which Michael Johns may have heard of, called the Quincy, Omaha, and Kansas City Railroad. Michael's written 2 books on that railroad. Fascinating little railroad that was. So there's your St. Louis, Kansas City, and Northern, built by predecessor roads up through Chillicothe and Pattonsburg. These maps are official Wabash maps, by the way. You scan them, load them in paint, you can make all these pretty colors in them. So the Council Bluffs and St. Louis Railroad, kind of simpler name, incorporated in 1878. They came down from Council Bluffs to Pattonsburg to close the gap. That took a little over a year to do all that line, construct all that. But this is the only railroad line in Council Bluffs that didn't get any free right-of-way or monetary grants. It was all built with investor monies. All the railroads going across Iowa, CN and W, the IC, Burlington, Rock Island, yeah, all got financial help to do that. But there are many, many rivers to cross in this area, as Gary can tell us.
This averages about 2 bridges per mile.
Unbelievable. All these eventually drain down to Missouri on the west part of Iowa. Come down from Council Bluffs, you're crossing Nishnabotnas, things like that.
102.
Huh?
102.
102 River, yeah.
And Ottawa.
Across the glacial valleys, across the Nottoway, Platte, Tarkio, Grand, Upper and Lower Nishnabotnas, which is an Indian name meaning big enough to use a canoe to cross. Plus numerous little creeks and sloughs and stuff like that along the way. Now, I've got this postcard, and it's not identified, but I think that's the Silver Creek Bridge southeast of Council Bluffs near Malvern. Is that look familiar to you? Highline extraordinary. Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one does.
Well, they may have filled some of that in.
Yeah.
There's just examples of some more of the bridges. That's one near Malvern, up on the top left. And this one I got off the internet. This is just a regular custom bridge, but you notice that it's got railings on the side. That's the Wabash Trace, bike trail at this point. Well, the Council Bluffs newspaper had a news account in 1879 where it describes this line that they built. Road here traverses some of the handsomest and finest country in western Iowa. First station out from Council Bluffs is 12 miles. During the trip home, the train made a little spurt 5 miles from the city, and Engineer Valentine opened the throttle until the party were flying along at the rate of 30 miles per hour. That was just a little bit faster than what I think we were going today, wasn't it?
28 was the maximum.
Yeah. Keep in mind, that's 1879. It must have been it. Well, there's another little railroad that came off the 19th district. It was called the Clarinda branch of the St. Louis, Kansas City, and Northern. Constructed 1880 from a little town called Roseberry, which I don't even think is there anymore. It's not even on the map, I don't think. But this was a small feeder branch to the Wabash, but it didn't work out. And then they abandoned this one just about a decade later. So nothing remains of that. So bringing it all together, here's your flow chart. Start off with the North Missouri, goes into the St. Louis, Kansas City, and Northern. Here's your Ottumwa branch here. Okay, those all go into the Wabash, St. Louis, and Pacific. Over on the left, you've got your Council Bluffs lines. They go into the Wabash, St. Louis, and Pacific. Then, from then on down, we go into the Wabash Railroad, Wabash Railway, and then the final company we know is the Wabash Railroad to 1964. Well, let's take a trip along the Wabash, what they referred to in the 1800s as the Western region. visual tour of the 16th and 19th, and we've even got some 11th district stuff in here too, thanks to Rob shares in front of it today too. Now these photographs, these black and white that I put in here, are available online from the University of Iowa. And there's some really nice depot shots and stuff we'll see. I had a chance to get this, when they were ripping up this line back in the mid-90s, I had a chance to get this sign, and I told the guy I'd be back the next day. Next day was go home. Let's start off in Moulton, 242 miles from St. Louis. In Moulton, they had a combo depot, coal ramp, water tank, stockyards, interchange with the Burlington there. Not many people know that. Until 1950 Burlington abandonment. Burlington had trackage rights on the Wabash from Bloomfield to Moulton, and then on down to, I think, Unionville, Missouri, and points beyond. Moulton's pretty much the center point between Moberly and Des Moines. Moulton shops were a very, very big local employer until the early 1930s. This is a hand-drawn map out of a Moulton history book by this guy, B.E. Johnson, who I believe worked in the shops. But see the date on it? 76. He's drawn this from memory almost 50 years later. This is very, very detailed. You're coming up from the south to Moberly, coming into the yards, rip tracks, turntable, roundhouse, the Q tracks coming on down from Bloomfield into Missouri. And there was a crossing tower there. And Wabash Station is where my pointer is now. And that's an awesome drawing. The guy did it almost 50 years after he worked there.
The Q line was the Burlington and Southwest.
Yes,
Independent Road.
correct. This is a really neat postcard view I've got. It's Moulton Yard looking east. It's looking towards St. Louis, in other words, because it's railroad east. This postcard was dated 1910, probably taken from the switch tower, because you see the interlocking levers and stuff there. Really, really nice view. The bums jungle, as they called it, was down in here. That's where the bums would all get off and camp, because over here was the lake. They would go down and take a swim and whatever. And of course, there's your coal dock and the water tank. And up in here, this would be where the roundhouse and stuff is. Here's just some views of the Moulton railroad facilities. You got the coal ramp and water tank, nice view of that. This is diesel era, sand tower. That's in the Moberly Historical Society collection. And the second depot and the Wabash Hotel. Nice little architecture on both. This is a view of the original 8-stall Moulton roundhouse. This is probably taken in the 1970s, I would guess. And by this time, it's being used for storage by Elmer Wood Company, who's a very big local grain dealer and general store operator. That was gone probably not too long after this photo was taken. This photo I found today over at Moravia. I took a picture of the picture and was able to download it. Wabash turntable, Moulton, Iowa. That's the number of the engine is 280. And I think Rob and I figured out it was a 280. 280. Nice view. Moulton switch crew, they're even identified in this photograph. There's another view of the depot, marvelous depot. That depot was demolished as late as 1977. It's a shame. This is the second station in Moulton because the first one was destroyed when a southbound passenger train with an engineer who was asleep ran through an open switch into the depot, causing a fire which destroyed the structure. In fact, my Moulton history book has a first-hand account from a lady whose dad was the station agent at the first depot and ran down with her dad to save the records from the depot. Going up the Ottumwa branch, we go through West Grove. The original depot at West Grove burned in 1906, and the notations I had in my bridge and building book was it was replaced with a frame depot from Springfield, Illinois. So this depot here is from Springfield, Illinois, somewhere. It does have the look of an Illinois depot for those of you who are into depots, because it's got the flat with the dormer over the operator's track.
That gone today or there, or you don't know?
It's gone.
I understand the second Wabash depot, when I first came down here in the late 70s with somebody's private home, had been moved off tracks and was somebody's private home in Moulton.
No kidding.
And I never was able, I drove around looking for it, never was able to locate anything that looked like it.
I would love to see it if it were there.
That's that yellow house I talked to you about here. I bet you anything.
At a little town called Belknap, Iowa. I think my slides may be out of order because we haven't did Bloomfield yet. We crossed the Rock Island at Belknap. The top photo is I believe that was actually a Rock Island depot that the Wabash shared, and of course the interlocking tower there. Bottom photo is obviously not a Wabash heritage. I don't guess that's probably a Rock Island. But Gary and I went through Belknap earlier this year, scouting locations, and there's nothing left at Belknap other than some distance signals and approach signals and stuff like that. Okay, here's Bloomfield. Really nice postcard shot of the Bloomfield depot. Built 1886. They had car and tool houses. The railroad actually owned the stockyards here, I found out. And I'd never seen this image below that, did you, Gary? Bloomfield Depot, 1954. That looks like the ones on the High Line. Asbestos siding.
That is from the Iowa, University of Iowa. It's got that picture in it, saying it's the Wabash in Bloomfield.
Yeah. And even that's gone today. Okay, this was the terminus of the Ottumwa branch until the bridge was built. We figured that out. That was 1888 when that was put in. But check out this nice little depot here with the turret. Isn't that awesome? Also in South Ottumwa, there was a 60-foot wood turntable, a 2-stall engine house with a water tank. Interestingly, this depot was removed in 1906, loaded onto a flat car, and taken down to Waukenda, Missouri. And when it was at Waukenda, it had lost its turret. They obviously had to take that off to make the trip, I would guess. But yeah, funny how they could just put it on a flat car and take it out.
We found the location from the picture at the University of Iowa. It states it was at Sheridan and Garfield streets. And on the maps, you see it, and there's something there, but you can't rightly figure out what it is.
I'll be done. A word must be said about the Dane Manufacturing Company, later became the John Deere Ottumwa Works. Switching and loading services here performed by Wabash and the CMSPP.
Milwaukee.
Isn't that right?
That's Milwaukee.
Yep. Yeah.
And Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific.
Right.
It's slow paying poor or something, I don't know.
In later years, by switching agreement with Wabash, that's not a very good photo of it, but here's the map that we're giving away. And I was telling Tom Forrest and Paul Schultz today that John Deere complex was full of tracks at one time or another. In fact, I remember up a big balloon track coming off of it around these buildings. This would be Highway 34 up here, I believe. And coming all the way around and tying back in with Wabash all the way back here. That was in the 80s when that was still in.
My brother worked the loading dock there when the bridge went down across the Des Moines River and stuck the Milwaukee caboose and Fairbanks Moore's engine. They were just outside his office on the loading dock.
If you see the location of the South Ottumwa station pointed out on any of your maps, I'm curious where that was.
Find it. Don't you have a Ottumwa map? Yeah. Sheridan and Garfield.
It's not too far from where the YMCA is now.
Down there.
Yeah, it's in that area.
Here we are at Ottumwa. Wabash track here consisted of a joint yard, freight house, and team track with the Milwaukee. Trackage rights on the Milwaukee. Wabash shared a depot with the Milwaukee. Direct interchange with Rock Island as well as CD and Q. Okay? This is a neat little station also with a turret.
James, do you know when that was built?
This depot?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Some of that-
Was this a Milwaukee?
It sounds to me like a Milwaukee design,
Yeah.
but
The map indicated that he had Wabash ownership ended right at the north end of the bridge, so that might be solely Milwaukee.
Solely Milwaukee.
Trackage rights for that.
Garfield insurance.
any natives know how that depot was painted?
It was great.
It was gray.
So the station was right about here.
What building?
So the train came up this way. That was built by the MKT.
Yeah, but Gary, some of the Wabash structures, example being Milan's Tower, had those diamond shingle roofs.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, so did, I don't know if Jackson, some of their interlocking towers, and that's a higher end structure, so it's possible, but it just looks more like a Milwaukee depot based on what I know about the Milwaukee.
The window design will tell you right there, same with that bay window and the roof line. Look at how low that is. That's Milwaukee Road to me all the way.
James, from back here, I can't see the bottom. Is that brick? Where it's dark?
Yes.
Dark, and it's stucco?
Concrete.
Yeah.
The freight depot in Columbia, Missouri, that they tore down to build the fire station had a very similar look to that and had the hip roof style that was. I've got some pictures of it and some stuff I've got too.
I was wondering if there was a picture of that depot in the Columbia branch article there. I was thinking the same thing, but.
Now, I'm not talking about the stone
No,
passenger,
you're talking
I'm about the freight depot that they tore down.
Which was the passenger depot.
It was the first passenger depot, but that also historically goes back to that Ashland and Boone,
Ah.
which was a predecessor to the Polk Train.
Well, here's a nice view from Charles Franzen. He was a widely known photographer of Iowa railroad subjects. This shows the joint yard facilities. The Milwaukee Freight House is right here. Of course, the Milwaukee switcher. Back here, I don't know if you can see it. It's still got the turret on it. It's like,
Yeah,
it's like-
it's under the arrow.
yeah. And this is in the early 70s.
That's it.
Bill Greenlee was the conductor.
Yep.
And in the back there, you can see, and Gary had to point this out to me when he converted this to a JPEG for me, actually a train crossing the Wabash Bridge. Whichever direction, but there's a train on the Wabash Bridge back there.
That would have been about dusk, so it'd be coming in. I remember walking the Jefferson Street viaduct and seeing it coming in about between 4, 5, 6 o'clock.
I was telling Tom and Paul today that it wasn't that long ago where you could walk up to this location, there were still tracks and switches and switch stands and stuff up in there.
It is,
But that all, I guess when they did the trail, they yanked all
They
that.
cleaned it up
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
But probably after 2000, huh, Dale?
It was about 3 years ago they got the last rail out.
Does the town of Ottumwa, the city of Ottumwa, I wonder, have any plans? Does anyone know if there's plans to utilize that space that was the yard? Otherwise, they're salvage,
It's
but,
been incorporated into the park system.
oh, the park
It's
system.
trails.
Okay, thank you.
That's just a map of, station map of Gary's that he sent me. I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Just to show the freight house, its location, the joint depot with the Milwaukee, and the bridge coming across the Des Moines River. This is from the palimpsest. Ottumwa switch engine crew. It's on the west side of the Wabash Bridge. 22, 24 maybe. Unknown what year, but obviously they're pretty proud of their service or their locomotive or something. So. Steve Miller, I think, mentioned today about this bridge. This is bridge number 278 over the Rock Island north of Moulton. Those who attended the 99 meeting we had in Centerville would have had a good view of this, because this is where we detrained for a photo run by op. And at this time, the Avenues County Railroad doesn't even use this bridge anymore. They've constructed they don't go around the train anymore. It just goes straight onto the Wabash, onto the other railroads going into, they built a curved track. So this bridge is even out of service at this time. Neat old bridge. Little town of Udell. Anybody ever heard of Udell? Yeah? Did you spend a week there one day? Nothing
One day, yeah.
Spend it.
I have a strange
Couple of minutes to
question.
walk
How
up the
deep is
street.
the Des Moines River around the bridge down here? I'm just curious.
Do what?
How deep is the Des Moines River down here under the bridge?
They claim it's about 7 feet right now.
7 feet? Uh-huh.
But it was up to 23 in 19...
33?
Huh?
93?
21
No,
about a
and-
month ago.
Yeah, 93 foot. No, 2 years ago it was up to 23 feet. It was right to the top of the piers on the railroad bridge, and the levees are 25 feet. This year it got up to 20 feet essentially.
There's what we saw today, those of us who went on the train trip. Beautiful, beautiful depot. If you missed it, I mean, you missed out on something. Inside, the woodwork is just beautiful in this depot. Little town called Hilton, Iowa. My B&B boat list, Hilton is having a cinder platform and a mail crane, although there's a notation in it that says a section tool house was used as a depot here. This is 1989 photo and nothing there. I don't have anything on Selection, Iowa, Jerry.
Did you see the piers?
No, we didn't. I didn't see the piers.
I looked. That's it.
Now, I may have gotten this wrong. Someone pipe up and let me know. I found this postcard, Railroad Viaducts, Albia, Iowa. This, I'm sure, is correct. The Burlington running under the other one. We were presuming that this is the Milwaukee and St. Louis bridge, and then this is the Wabash bridge beyond that.
Minneapolis or midnight is still
St.
later.
Paul.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
St. Louis.
But it, I don't, Gary and I weren't sure whether or not this may have been Southern Iowa, used this too. Coming out, I'm not for sure.
Very likely, they could have used it.
Well, here's the station in Albia, again, a joint station with the Iowa Central, later the Minneapolis and St. Louis. Interchange here with the Burlington. 50 cars exchanged per day with the midnight and sometimes later.
No, midnight is still later. That's the passengers called it. So slow. It's still later.
Well, they used RDCs. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Now, Albia was a valuable interchange point with Iowa Central. As we've seen, the North Star Limited passenger train came into here from the Twin Cities. It was a through train with sleepers, chair, and cafe cars. Discontinued in 1938, but it was popular with Midwestern travelers for well over 3 decades. Nice little graphic. Hold that there. Another nice little postcard on the Wabash, Albia, Iowa. We went under this bridge today, Tom and Paul. They replaced it with a new one a few years back, but who knows whether this is well, who knows, MSL or whatever. Wabash and CB&Q north of Albia ran parallel to each other through Sheehan and Lavilia, okay? In World War I, when the U.S. Railroad Administration took over all the railroads, they decreed that the Wabash run its trains over CB&Q from Albia north to the county line. CB&Q was ordered to run its trains over the Wabash north of that up to Tracy. Okay? Government at its best, I guess. After World War I, both roads reverted to their own lines. But then the Depression hits, 1929 era. Both roads eventually rethought their commitment to their own lines through here. So 1929 is when they started pulling up their own lines and ran the original arrangement, the World War I era arrangement. And if you go up through that area, you can actually see where the Wabash roadbed cut through the timber and the grass and stuff. Then we come to Lobelia. It looks like a Burlington depot, but it's actually a Wabash depot. The bottom one, I wonder if the bottom one was maybe the Burlington. Anyway.
Is it a shortened version of the top one?
Could be, or it could be actually the Burlington. Burned in the Wabash one burned in 1905, and the notation in my bridge and building book says it was replaced by a building from north of St. Louis. Where? I have no idea. Which one? Maybe a commuter station that came down to North St. Louis? There's a Lobelia depot plans, courtesy of Gary. Just your standard combination depot. Then we come to the famous town of Buskey, Iowa. Section house built 1889 was removed by 1902. This depot is saved, is preserved. The train order board, that's the one that's down in Moravia now. A guy named Bill Berkman, who Steve was friends with, got permission from Norfolk Southern to go up to Bussey, get their train order board and bring it back to Moravia. I guess the Bussey folks weren't too happy that happened, and I know the Knoxville folks aren't happy, and they want their train order board back.
Where was the station? You said it was saved.
Yeah, it's in Knoxville.
It's on the Marion County Fairgrounds.
Yeah, that's when the railroads ran parallel to each other. There were two different stations there. Burlington's in front, then there's the Wabash back there. But this is what it looks like today. I took that photo, when did we go up there? June? First part of July, maybe? That's my son, looking very thrilled by the depot there. But they did a really nice job on painting it and everything. We didn't actually get to go in it that day, but Rob says he's been in it. And they really, really want their train there.
That's why they wouldn't let you in.
Yeah.
They still manage.
Tracy, Iowa. This is the original Wabash depot at Tracy. Tracy actually had a wooden turntable installed in 1902, but the notes say it was taken out that same year. I have no idea why. Now this is Tracy post first part of the century. Around the Tracy area is a very, very big coal mining area. You had Pershing and Empire coal companies and smaller coal mines dominating this area, as Mark Bond outlined in his Coal on Wabash article. This was a joint yard maintained with CB&Q, 750 car capacity at this yard here for coal coming in from local coal mine operations. According to Mark's article, most of the Tracy area coal went north to Des Moines to the power plant for coal.
James?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the Burlington route published an issue of their publication that talks about the Burlington and Western, which went over to Oskaloosa.
Yes.
And in there, I think it seems to me there's a station map, and I believe it shows a turntable still in place that may have been shared by the Wabash. And there was a Wabash concrete coaling tower at Tracy that I've seen a picture of it in a Tracy Centennial book, and it actually has a Wabash flag painted as big as day on the side of that concrete coaling tower.
I would love to see a picture of that.
I got that publication. I could scan it. It's it's a low res, very pixelated It
Was
looked
the standard-
terrible.
Was it the standard concrete coaling tower like you saw in Moberly? and
No,
Decatur?
it's a cylindrical one.
Oh, okay.
It looks like a Robertson Schaefer cooling tower.
Kind of like the one at they had a big man. Yeah.
It looks similar to like, if you're familiar with the Ann Arbor's one at Alberta.
Yes.
It looks like that,
Yeah, okay.
but it's a decent sized cooling tower.
If you could email that to me, that would be super.
I will try to dig that up for you.
Appreciate that. Now, sometime after the turn of the century, maybe the teens, the Wabash started replacing their really old combo depots with stucco depots. Did Victor ever send you that article that he bought off eBay? Bought out from under me?
One thing I want to interject here, somewhat little known fact is kind of dropping back to Albia, but it involves Tracy as well, is the Emmons St. L came down from the north into Albia, and they actually had tracking rights over the Wabash to go back up to Tracy, and they were serving, I guess they were serving the coal mines as well. I'm not sure what the whole deal was on that, and it could have been just simply coal that they were purchasing for steam locomotives. But they're in the employee timetables from the early 50s at least, and back into the 40s, they ran a train up to Albia, up to Tracy and back on the Wabash.
They actually ran all the way up to Des Moines on the CB&Q.
Oh, did they?
I believe.
Okay.
They're in the Emmons St. L trains are in the Wabash timetables, and they're also in the Burlington employee timetables.
Well, north of Tracy, we come to a little town called Harvey. Now, there was a combination depot there, but my bridge and building book says that Rock Island owned it. On a 1919 valuation map that Gary sent me, there are no depots showing in Harvey at all, either Wabash or Rock Island. And the Rock Island in that map shows abandoned by 1919. But remember, this is how the Wabash got to Des Moines from Ottumwa. They ran north on the Rock up to Harvey and then got back on the Wabash there. I don't have any photos available of Harvey. I haven't been able to find any after years of searching. 2 miles north of the town, there's a water tank situated on the east side of Bridge 2891, crossing the Des Moines River, which we'll see. This bridge is still in existence today. It's a Howe truss, erected in 1890, renewed in 1905. But after the line abandonment in 1964, account the Red Rock Dam line relocation project, this bridge was actually used as a single-lane auto bridge crossing the Des Moines River. Gravel. That's when I took this photo. My wife and I drove right over, went up to Des Moines. Now, Gary Rowe and I found this summer that the bridge had been closed to vehicle traffic since further upstream a new auto bridge has been built. However, we found you can still walk out onto the bridge. It appears to have been destined to be part of a hike bike trail at some point. And let me tell you, this was during the spring rains, and that river was flowing pretty hard down that.
I remember driving across that bridge.
Huh?
I remember driving across
Yeah.
that bridge.
Yeah.
And wondered, why did they ever do it this way?
Yeah.
They convert this railroad bridge.
It was the only way across for, yeah, I guess you'd have to go up to Knoxville and then to get across the river. But yeah, it was the only way across. And you notice keep in mind what this bridge looks like. It's got one concrete pier and then 2 cylindrical steel piers. We'll see a similar bridge when we get to Des Moines. Supposedly Jonathan Moulton built this bridge before he died, or was in charge of building this bridge before he passed on. Little town, I call it a town, it's called Red Rock, Iowa. It's not found in my B&B book, although it shows on a 1914 map that I found of Iowa railroads. But anyway, this photograph here that I found on the internet shows the siding built for the Lake Red Rock Dam construction going off there. Undoubtedly, Gary and I haven't gotten this far north yet, but this is probably underwater at this point, I would guess, after this was abandoned. little town called Fifield, Iowa. This is a 1964 shot from Ron Sims. I'm asking again, is this underwater too? Considering where this line ran, how close to the river it ran, this is in the watershed.
Yeah.
Here's a shot of the Cordova Depot, as it were. Cordova had actually a combination depot built in 1888. 1919 valuation map shows coal lines coming into Cordova, including coal docks. Apparently coal mining was big up in this area too. This is your standard shot you see out of Harold Connor. I don't know if Harold got it from this or what, but little town called Dunreath. They actually had a combo depot as well. 1919 map shows no depot there. Dunreath Depot, and I crossed it out for shed. Is basically what it is. 1956. Oh, yeah, big town of Kersey, Iowa. Combination depot that lasted 10 years here in Kersey. This was actually a flag stop for train number 11 and train number 14. Stopped here on the signal. Nothing there today. Runnels is where, when they did the line relocation project, this is where the Burlington comes in and ties into the Wabash part of it. Nice little combination depot here. Then a little town called Hasty. This had a passenger waiting shed. It's the only, in my bridge and building book, it's the only town I found on this line that had a waiting shed. I'd love to see a photo of that. Then we come to the big town of McCoy. You see the spur going off to the left. That's, I believe that's being used today by NS to get into the former Burlington yard. Blake Yard, I think is what they call it. And then the line continues on up into Des Moines proper. And then we hit Des Moines. Huge Union Depot there. Des Moines Union Railway Company occupied it. There was also a joint Milwaukee-Wabash freight house. Is that right, Milwaukee? Okay. Trains 11 and 14, the Des Moines and St. Louis Limiteds ended passenger train service September 30th, 1959. The final Wabash passenger train out of this station was on that date. A gentleman named R.E. Hughes, who called the first train out of that station in 1898, came out of retirement to call the last Wabash train.
Can I just interrupt? This isn't too much to do with the Wabash, but Des Moines right now, there's discussion going on where to put the new train station, and actually they built a brand new bus station, which they uses money for buses and highways, you know. And this beautiful thing is being built about 2 blocks or a block east of that location. And since then, another proposal has surfaced to use the Rock Island station, which is now for sale. So I don't know which area is going to win. I wanted to go to the city planning or get involved in this and find out why and all that. But I think the new bus station's better because it would have more property. Where the Rock Island is, it's all sold off. But it's kind of amazing. I'd love to see pictures of the inside of this, by the way. I've never seen.
I haven't either.
Never seen pictures of this station, but the new station in Des Moines will be very close to where this is.
I take it that this is no longer standing?
Oh no, parking lot. Across the street from the courthouse.
Isn't the far end still standing?
Not that I know. There's I think there's a freight house or something part of this complex, but not that building, to my knowledge.
This building is gone.
To my knowledge.
The building that's there has the domed windows, though, the arched windows.
The station that's there is the Rock Island station.
No, this is on the far end there of where the Union Station was. Just a couple blocks north of the Rock Island.
Boy, if it's there, I want to see it.
Rob, can your computer get on the internet? Can you
Yep.
get a Google map and check that out?
There's some kind of ex-railroad structure, but I think it's
I was thinking
east
it's
of
freight
there. It
house.
looks like it's very freight looking to me. It's very, nothing like this beautiful structure.
Oh, beautiful. To get over to that station, you'd have to cross Bridge 339. I took that photo in 1998. Notice the similarity between the one at Harvey and this one. This was undoubtedly another Jonathan B. Bolton design.
This is a walkway today with apartment buildings around it.
Yes, they've taken all these old warehouses, yes, converted them into loft apartments and
Yeah.
stuff.
It's very gentrified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is great because they got those great old bridges crossing the river, the street bridges and stuff. It's a nice area down there. There's your joint freight house. This ran in our calendar a few years ago. I don't know where you found that. That's an awesome shot. Well, just a few words about Des Moines Union Railway. That was incorporated in 1884 as a joint venture, again, between the Wabash and Milwaukee. There was a total of 42 miles of track, 160 industries, and 4 industries exclusively served by the Wabash around the Des Moines area. Inbound cars to Des Moines and points beyond arrived via train 95 from Moberly and points east. Outbound cars departed via train number 98. And also coming out of Des Moines was the Des Moines Turn. That was a daily except Sunday train. It did all the local work from Chesterfield, just outside of Des Moines, down to Hamilton, including the coal turns. And I've actually got a picture of the Des Moines Turn we'll see here later. Departed at 7:30 in the morning, arrived back no later than 8. So local work only. This is a map that Alan Reuter bought off eBay, terminal maps. Now, how many have actually investigated the trackage around Des Moines, the Wabash trackage? I know Miss Randy.
Yeah.
Here's the Wabash coming in. Here's the Burlington. The Lake Yard is down in here. Well, I found out from my travels that this neat little connector track that the Wabash erected in '64, as well as all the blue colored trackage here has been removed. How the Wabash gets into the Burlington yard. Here's McCoy. Here's the siding that I told you was coming off. And that Norfolk Southern services all kinds of petrochemical facilities down in this area. So that they have to come south, and then they ended up building a connector track down here to get into the Lake Yard. And I found actually some fixed blade approach signals to get into the Wabash Yard. They're still standing, but they've been gutted and vandalized and stuff like that. They're up in here where this red dot is. The industry served by the Wabash was primarily down in this area, the petrochemical, Phillips Petroleum, things like that. But the Wabash also served a tire plant called Armstrong or Titan Tire. It was Titan Tire at one point. And that's up in this area. And there are still tracks. It can still be served by the NS today, but last time I was up there, it didn't look like anything had been on it in years. And of course, there's the interchange here with, this is the Rock Island, now the Iowa Interstate Yard.
UP also, UP really also.
Yes.
Iowa Interstate goes in there, but UP.
Right. So you come in, here's the Des Moines Union Yard, and you keep going, and eventually you cross the Des Moines River on Bridge 339, and over here is where across the river, south of the Capitol, I guess, is where you find the freight house and Des Moines Union Railway Station.
And then right in here is where the Des Moines Union roundhouse and
Yes.
and where the engines would be turned and fueled and stuff.
Yeah, it was my understanding that the 18th Street yard was just for combining cars, shipments, and things like that. The actual servicing took place up here in downtown Des Moines. Just a couple pictures I found of VMU locomotives on the internet. One steamer and was that an Alco?
Yeah.
Didn't this particular locomotive end up on the south bend?
NJI.
NJI. I took this photo in 1997. This was Des Moines Union Railway office.
Were they shut down in the late 80s, Jim? Or when did Des Moines Union go out of business?
I don't know. That would probably be a good guess, considering the condition of this, yeah.
Wasn't that's the East Des Moines station, the Fort Dodge Des Moines Southern turned into the street here, and who else went in it? Wasn't there Wabash, maybe the Great Western, or am I wrong?
CGW, yeah.
Chicago Great Western.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's still there.
It is.
The trees are gone. We can get a better shot today.
Good.
But it's still there in that condition, by the way.
You kind of wonder what's in there.
It's emptied, I know, that an oil company owned it, and they're gone.
Well, it could be like maybe the Decatur station, Vance and somebody went up in the Decatur depot that's the antique mall now, and was finding plans and stuff up in that.
The track goes all the way down to the police department.
Yes.
On the left, which is direction west.
Yeah, that one. And then it cuts off.
It just
And then
stops where it goes
turns
over
into a trail going
yes.
across the river.
Yep.
Very neat area. Well, Wabashing around the 16th from the camera of, some of you may know Rich Hovey, used to live around this area, Centerville, Albion, Moravia area. He took a lot of photos back in the 60s and 70s. Some of you can find on railpictures.net. There is the Des Moines turn. Notice the panel-sided hoppers. There's the 489 at the yard in November '64. There's a switch move in 1962. I didn't know that the 500 series units ever got up to Des Moines area. I was just always under the assumption they were on the Kansas City run. But that's down at the one on the right's down at Harvey, getting ready to go on the bridge. Howell, Iowa, 62. There's one west of Harvey Bridge, and that one's getting ready to go on the bridge itself. Fall of 1960. Well, let's head on over to the 19th, Missouri-Iowa border to Council Bluffs. Blanchard, Missouri, or is it Blanchard, Iowa? Have we ever figured this out?
I think it's Blanchard, Iowa. Most of the family is in Iowa.
You search for it on the internet, it's Blanchard, Missouri.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Named for the superintendent of construction for this railroad line, J.W. Blanchard. In 1879, 3 coaches left from Council Bluffs en route to the Iowa-Missouri border. Similar train also arrived from the south. And at 1 p.m. that day, the sale of lots began, lasting 3.5 hours. And that's how the town of Blanchard got formed. It stands astride the Missouri-Iowa border, and it's the same zip code for most states. You look at a map, and there's streets in Missouri and streets in Iowa. I have no idea how their law enforcement is working.
Same as Lineville, though.
Whether towns or...
Lineville, same.
Lineville? Yeah. There's what their depot looked like. Water tank there burned and was replaced in 1905.
I think you're right.
That's a 2-ton painted depot.
Must have been empty.
What was the question?
How do you burn a water tank?
From the outside.
Yeah. Lightning strike, maybe, who knows?
Was it full? It burned down to the water line.
A little town called Coyne, Iowa. That's the combination depot. The B&B book I have says it was replaced in 1901 with the old depot from Birmingham, Missouri, which is on the Kansas City line. Nice shot from Gary Road. That was in the calendar too. Anyway, back when these combination depots started deteriorating, and these are predominant on the High Line, on this line, the Wabash came through and raised all the combination depots and started putting up these frame depots, for lack of a better word, with asbestos siding. And these are where you'll see these depots are primarily on the High Line. There's some down on the St. Louis, like Wright City.
Wright City,
Yeah.
But there was one of these at Blanchard also.
Yes. There's the Shenandoah Depot. That has been preserved. Thank you. Shenandoah was an interchange point with Burlington. For those of you who haven't been to Shenandoah, that's where Earl May, the seed dealer, is there. Also the Henry Field Nursery. They shipped out on both railroads.
That's where the Everly brothers were first heard on the radio because their dad worked at the radio station.
It's a little known fact that there's the depot plan for Shenandoah, thanks to Gary. This is huge. This is absolutely huge depot.
Notice the segregated waiting rooms.
Yes.
Women's and men.
Men's. Not even Moravia could boast that.
Centerville, Burlington does.
Then you come to a little town called Imogene, I think. Built in 1880 by the contractor for all these original depots, Cottrell and Beard. Two different depots at a town called Malvern. Again, the standard combination depot, and then the 1950s era frame depot with the asbestos siding.
That's still standing.
Yes, it is.
Actually, James kind of mentioned it earlier, but the right-of-way from Blanchard to almost to Council Bluffs is a trail now, a hike-bike trail called the Wabash Trace. It's about 60 miles.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. That's part of the reason that depot is still standing, because it's I think they use it as a rest stop when they have bigger events. I'm sorry.
That's right. Silver City. That's a nice shop in Silver City.
Lloyd Dearling would like to copy that.
Okay. He shared with me. I'm happy to show.
Hey, James?
Yeah.
You go back?
Yeah.
What's the color scheme on that depot?
Oh, I wish I knew. Yeah.
This is the great debate of all time as far as the Wabash is concerned. Colorized postcards show it as a kind of a brown on the lower and a yellow on the top. It's not bright yellow, kind of a maybe mustard or something on the top. But you know, you can't really go by that because it's somebody's idea.
Yeah.
In the 50s, didn't they do some black and whites? White over black? There were some depots that were done, there were some structures on the Wabash that were painted white, and then the lower part was painted black. Union Pacific did that, they did white over green.
When did you say?
Wabash was way over black.
What era did you say?
Some of that in the 50s.
Oh, that was gray.
Was it gray?
Gray with black. Those were primarily maintenance away.
Yeah.
They painted black up about 3 feet high.
That's about
But I don't think
6
any
feet
passenger
there.
stations will paint that.
You were talking about the red and kind of the yellowish color.
Right.
I think it's interesting that the depot in Antwerp right now is painted red and yellow.
Okay.
Yellow on top and red in the bottom.
I thought maybe it was a high water mark in one of the floods.
Along this line, there's probably a pretty good chance that it got wet once or twice. Little town of Mineola. All there was in 80 was a station sign there.
When the bike trail that goes on the Wabash Trace, they ride down to Mineola and there's a steakhouse. And they have huge numbers of people that do taco rides and Thursday night taco rides, and they ride from Council Bluffs down to Mineola and drink their margaritas, and sometimes I think they got them about halfway that you can stop and get some refreshments, but they ride down Trace to Mineola for this big taco ride. It's huge in Omaha.
Drunken bicycle, well, it keeps them off the highways. Then we come to East Switch, Council Bluffs, Iowa, milepost 409 miles from St. Louis. We had an engine house, brick, there's dimensions if you want to know, 6 stalls in it. They originally had a 50-foot wood turntable replaced with an iron turntable, 60-foot in 1906, but they thought they needed an 85-foot turntable in 1932, and I think that was even increased after that, like maybe with a 90-foot turntable. But they never used any of the big O1s or anything up in that area for that. My B&B book says there's car repair supply rooms, 2 old box cars. Freight house there was later moved to Lake Manawa area as an antique shop.
Manawa.
Manawa? You know if that's still there?
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
If you grab a photo, that'd be super. I'd like to see it. Well, this is a photo that Kirsty Gary, there's a series, I think 3 or 4 aerial photos of the East Switch Council Bluffs yard that Gary got. Basically, you're looking south, yeah, towards St. Louis. Of course, you've got the water tank in place. Keep in mind, this is NW era, but you've got the remains of the mechanics building that was attached to the turntable. Turntable was over in this area, I believe. And here's an engine house. Water tank was still there. There's the storehouse. And you can actually see there are 2 passenger cars still here. I don't know if they were still running train 214 at this time. I don't know what, maybe there were cars or something.
I have a friend that's retired in New Mexico, and he rode the mixed train up here and got off here. They didn't go into Omaha anymore. He said he got off at this shop repair center near Omaha. It's got to be here. It was just a little brick platform. That was it. And I don't know how he got into Omaha from there, but he did. Big mixed train, by the way, with coaches on the back. Big train, slacking.
We'll see a picture of it here in a minute.
Yes, any of that more of these in here?
I've got a yard view of the drawing.
Oh, let me, Council Bluffs is one of the oddest places on the Wabash in one respect. You can see right here, there's a Y track coming around, and there's one right here. Well, the tail of that comes down into here, and as James said, the turntable set just right about in here. So why did we have a Y and a turntable?
Yeah.
There was a little spur off of the tail of the Y that went to the turntable. So
that's all.
Very strange, but
Did they turn some sort of a small train?
perhaps.
I had a Trains magazine from a few years ago that they were doing this series called Around the Different Railroads or whatever, and they did one on Council Bluffs. And it's kind of neat because this yard is still in operation. There's some railroad out there that's actually running. It's basically a switching railroad for some grain elevators, I think, around that area. But the Wabash Trace, I think even maybe UP runs a little bit of this nowadays.
DC is running, I'm not sure how it lays against this, maybe up to the right of the picture. They re-put the track back down, there's a big Mid-America power plant. That's how UP gets over there.
What happens is the Burlington is not too far out. Well, it's a ways out of the picture over here, and it goes down to the power plant.
Right.
Well, the power plant was getting tired of paying their rates, and so they talked the UP into, like he said, reconstructing the track down a ways and then swinging across country so they could serve it as well. From what I understand, the Iowa Interstate actually owns this now.
Yeah, they bought it about 2 years ago.
Right.
And they have moved basically a lot of the intermodal yard equipment out of Maytag Town, Newton. And so they got an intermodal yard in this area.
Of course, you see it in Milwaukee Yard and the Rock Island Yard often.
Which, the Rock Island Yard is the main Iowa Interstate Yard.
Yes.
This, you can also see in this picture the big automobile parking and unloading area there. So late into the Wabash era and then early in the NMW era, there was hundreds of thousands of automobiles that came up this line out of St. Louis and was unloaded here. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you can see auto racks loaded right down in here, and there was a ramp that, well, that's to load them back on the trucks. The unloading ramp for the cars was right in this area here. Anyway, I'm sorry.
But it appears to be some kind of a center beam for lumber or something.
No, that's a auto rack. It's not enclosed.
James?
Yeah.
Regarding the Y, because they had put that in prior to putting in an extended turntable, that they had to do the turntable anyway.
Is that where they turned past? I thought they hauled it back over from.
They hauled it.
Union.
Yeah, they
Union
did.
Station.
Go across the river to Omaha, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, this is, better shows it. Of course, there's a turntable, machine shop, but this portion of it was just visible in that photo. Storeroom, this was cold press line,
Yes.
cold line. But this drawing also came from Gary, and this is a turntable. Is it turntable replacement plans, engineering plans?
They're showing to replace a 60-footer with an 85.
Okay, excuse me. In one of the counters, we have a picture of a Wabash car off on that bridge going over to Omaha, and it shows that, and it talks about that it's pushed. And then also one of my UP books I've got where they came down in there with the Burlington. Part of the reason, if you can go back that way, part of the reason was the trains came in from the south, went onto the Y and back out, and they pushed them over to Omaha to unload passengers and brought them back across so they could go back south and they wouldn't have to turn again. Passenger car. That's in that Durham book.
There's an M.D. McCarter photo of the storehouse. That is still there, I believe. Not a month ago, and I didn't know this, but I-80 goes right by this yard, and I was on it not a month ago and just didn't think to look for that. Interchange with other roads at Council Bluffs. Direct connections made with Chicago and Northwestern, CGW, Milwaukee, Rock Island, and UP. Wabash deliveries for the western connections were delivered at Pool Yard, 2 miles west of the Wabash Yard, and this shows that. Here's the Wabash Yard. This actually has this listed as Wabash Main Line going up to Pool Yard. And then there's another one, Wabash Main Line, coming over this way. But yeah, and the interchange with CGW. And I guess this would go maybe over here to Rock Island.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Chicago Great Western interchange there, CB&Q interchange. There's Illinois Central in this area.
Chicago Northwestern delivery train.
This is the pool yard James was talking about. The UP, when they started their, well, I shouldn't say started, but for a long time they put a lot of their private passenger cars in this area right here. It's
Fox
called
Park
Yard, I believe.
Fox Park Coach Yard.
But that's, that Wabash #1 track is where a lot of the interchange to the UP was done.
Trains on the High Line. That's a good courtesy of Gary. That was in our calendar a few years ago. Train number 211 at Omaha.
Actually, that's not at the Union Station, that way in Omaha. That's at the transfer, mail transfer.
This was true mixed train railroading, this train number 211. Because you notice you got 2 locomotives, a baggage car, some kind of a coach, piggyback, and then behind that's a caboose. But the Wabash also, well, we have photographic evidence that they had E8s on the passenger trains coming out of Council Bluffs, because here's the 1009, Randy, with freshly painted trucks, it looks like to me, and another E8 with a Wabash baggage car, looks like a UP baggage car. I think in fact there's a goose on the end of this one too.
Believe it or not, I don't know what the era was, but I think it was in the 50s. There's a road between Blanchard, Iowa and Coyne that parallels the tracks. And a friend of mine that worked for the railroad when I did said that at one point he was up there on that road running 70 miles an hour and he could not keep up with it. And when I worked for the N&W in the 70s and early 80s, 35 was the maximum, and a lot of it was 10 miles.
It really went down.
That was 80 pound rail?
A lot of it was 90, but there probably was some 80s in there somewhere.
I included this photo. This is somewhere on the High Line. I actually found this in my grandmother's personal effects when she passed away. This is somewhere on the High Line. My grandfather is in this one. He's the guy with the holster here on some kind of a work train. He started off in Stanberry in 1917 with the Wabash.
Your grandfather and my grandfather probably worked together then.
I would guess, yeah.
They certainly knew each other.
And here's, they call it Willieville, William Oren Wilson, top left with pipe. This photo was taken at Council Bluffs. That was also in her personal effects. Now we're going all the way over to the east side of Iowa. Bluffs, Illinois to Keokuk. Mile posted at 541 from Detroit. The Wabash served Keokuk via the 11th District until abandonment in 1978. Locomotives were turned and serviced in Keokuk by the CB&Q. Thank you, Rob, for verifying that. This is the 573, somewhere on the, they called that part of the railroad the High Line too. Somewhere on the High Line. Here's the big bridge, Keokuk-Hamilton Bridge coming over. Over here would be Hamilton, Illinois. They would cross the bridge, come into the yards here.
And that, I mean, that yard is right north of the depot, isn't it? The depot is just to the south of that picture.
I would guess this may have been taken like from the
depot parking lot,
maybe. The bluffs overlooking the depot. Yeah.
Did the Wabash serve that depot?
Well, that,
Because that was a Burlington depot.
the little station down was TPW.
No, that big brick depot.
That's a Union Depot.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
Wabash, Rock Island, Burlington,
Yeah.
TPW.
Okay.
Last
Okay.
time I knew it was property of Pioneer Railroad runs the switching service down there. They've been trying to sell it. Huh?
They were trying to donate it to the city.
But now they're trying to donate it. It comes on.
Because that's a gorgeous old
Oh,
building. I want to say
they've
that's
gotta
actually
get- they've gotta get that depot.
Pioneer's under new management, and they're a lot more user-friendly.
They're what? They are more?
Yeah, much more user-friendly.
Is it Michael Carr still in there?
Yes.
Just a couple shots of some trains that I found on the internet. A couple Jeeps, 1961 and 63. In the background of this shot, you can actually see the outline of the Rock Island Wabash Joint Freight House. This is courtesy of Rob Adams. We just downloaded this tonight. This is the 587 being serviced by the Burlington at Keokuk with one of those Red Devil conveyors. This, Rob, you said this was taken after they knocked down the Ogle cooling tower?
Right, that would have been probably a mid-50, or 50, 52, 53, 54 shot, somewhere in there.
That's a nice shot. Nice
Sure is. That's a nice machine, too.
Yeah. Wabash smash up, Molten Iowa. Look at that.
That's a railroad term, right, James? Smash up?
Yeah. Official railroad term.
He just wants to give us nightmares.
Various other wrecks around Molten area.
Incidentally, some of the old-time Milwaukee railroaders in this town, when they had a derailment, they always referred to it as they Wabash did. They're talking trash about us.
It wasn't just the Milwaukee guys that said that.
Probably not.
Don't bother sending in your renewable membership.
And if you do, we'll send it back. 19th District wreck, August 1st, 1903. This is train number 71, wrecked near Pony Creek, actually just east of Council Bluffs yard, when a cow derailed this locomotive. A brakeman, very unlucky, on his first trip, the fireman and a tramp were killed. Other hobos injured. The engineer jumped clear.
Gee, today you go through a whole herd, you know, it just smells bad.
Well, now, since you've suffered through an hour or so of me, it's getting pretty deep in here. Sometimes I get the feeling that the two biggest problems in America today are making ends meet and making meetings end. So I'm going to cut it off here. We'll do a quick Q&A or a question, and Lord help me have an answer, period. This, I think, signifies the WRHS board in action. Gary's your go-to guy for answers about the High Line. That's his area of the railroad. You actually ran trains on the High Line, didn't you? During the strike in 1978. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, rebellions?
Is that a replacement depot up at Albion now? It's about a block north of where we ran trains.
That was
depot-looking building.
The joint freight
house?
Yes. It's different than passenger station, which is long gone. Alan and Paul and I ran around Albion Day looking at stuff, and they were interested in Minneapolis and St. Louis and how they laid out their facilities in there. And you can actually, there's a walking trail on part of the MNSL in Albion. It's really a neat railroading town. What's next on the agenda, Mr. President?
Well, let's take a break, potty break, and
That's fine.
John, did you still want to show your slides? Sure. Okay. We're going to set up for some regular slides.
If anybody wants anything, now's the time to get it, because it's being folded up, because I gotta go south. Now's the time, give your money to Alan, come get it.
If you don't want to watch the slides, feel free to go home.
Get up there, walk around.
Sorry.
You know where your loyalties lie.
Would you need a hand carrying that stuff down to your vehicle, or?
I will, yeah.
And nothing's changed at Pioneer.
Bridget's not driving.
Brinkman runs it. He's retired, but he's, Oh, he owns the company. He's retired.
Yeah, he never gave that up.